Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the People's Voice. I am Trey Evans, and I am the People's Voice. Thank you again for checking out the podcast this week. As always, it is greatly appreciated. As always, we thank everyone who has taken some time to listen to the podcast today. We do understand that you could be utilizing your time to do something else, so we are appreciative that you're taking that time to spend with us. As always, if this information is valuable and you find it to be enlightening and worth sharing, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast and turn on notifications. That way you'll be notified when each episode is released. And we put out a new episode each and every Friday, which is heard on all podcast platforms. And then we put a video out on YouTube as well for those who would like to watch the podcast. But in any event, we say welcome and welcome to the People's Voice podcast. So today, I want to talk about an issue that is occurring in the United States that I think is very much going underreported. There is a senior living housing crisis in the United States. And I want to talk about that for multiple reasons. First and foremost, I saw a story just a couple of days ago out of Missouri, where there is a senior living complex that has had an issue with their elevators, and the seniors that live there have not been able to exit the building. Well, some of the seniors haven't been able to leave the building, especially those that live above the first floor. So I'll get into that story. But also, because of the housing crisis, which many of you have already heard of and has been well documented in the United States, and there is truly a quality housing crisis in the United States, this issue needs to be magnified even more, right? Because we, in the United States, life expectancy has just continued to go on longer as the years have gone by, right? Better access to medicine, better access to information, obviously change in diets and things of that nature. So residents of the United States are living longer. And because of that, along with this housing crisis, you now have these senior living communities, and some of them are, can be apartment complexes, or some of them can be, residential communities. Oftentimes, I'll take that back. There have been documented times that these communities and these apartment complexes are not being maintained by the companies or the property management companies that own or manage them. And so that's what I want to get into today, the increasing issue or the crisis with senior living here in the United States. So just for definition purposes, typically senior living is, and you've probably seen the signs 55 years and older. That's typically a senior living community or apartment, things of that nature. Let me kind of give some numbers so we can kind of get a baseline of where we're at. So as of today, according to the recent U.S. Census Bureau data, it says that roughly 1 in 5 Americans will be the age of 1 in 5 Americans are 65 years or older as of 2025 here in the United States. That's 1 in 5 Americans. Additionally, it's estimated that 75 million people in the United States will be age 65 or older by 2030. All right, that's only 5 years away. So now you have almost 75 million people who basically will be, or, not basically will be over the age or at 65 years or older, and many of these people will be looking towards senior living communities. This is going to create a major issue with the quality of living that many seniors will get to experience. Because keep in mind, why this is important and why so many senior living facilities are developed is because often seniors live on fixed incomes. And when I say fixed incomes, that's not to because I know sometimes there's a negative connotation when you say fixed income. Seniors are often those who have retired and they are living on not just, Social Security benefits, but many are living on, distributions from IRAs and pensions and 401ks, things of that nature. So they have a fixed income, right? Just wanted to make sure I to define that. But with 75 million people by 2030 being over 65 in the current housing crisis, you are looking at a major issue that's going to occur. According to, and I'm reading another article here, according to the National Investment Center for Seniors and Housing Care, it says that the vacancy rate for senior living apartments has decreased in recent years. In 2023, vacancy rates fell to just 9.3%, a number far below what is necessary to meet demand. So each year, there is less vacancy, but each year there are more and more seniors that are looking for quality housing and affordable housing and accessible housing too. Because remember, it needs to be accessible so they can get to certain resources, including doctor's visits, supermarkets, things of that nature. But let me play this piece out of Missouri. This is reported by KHOU 11. And they went to this apartment complex called the Jubilee Senior Living Housing Complex. And at this housing complex, you've had residents, as I said earlier, that have been living in this apartment for the last 2 months, and the elevators haven't been working. I want to play this one piece from this resident who is 85 years old and hasn't been out of her apartment in 2 months. So let me play this, and then I'll go on from there.
Congressman Al Green and other local officials took the 80 steps to get to the 4th floor. That's where we met Miss Hanif, who's 85 years old. She says she's been stuck on the 4th floor for 2 months because the elevator has been broken and even missed a doctor's appointment last week.
I just missed my appointment on last Tuesday, and I told them why I would have to cancel because I can't get up and downstairs.
The question I raise is this America?
And I wanted to play that. So as you heard from the resident herself, 2 months stuck, basically trapped in an apartment building that is designed for senior living and has not been able to leave her apartment because the elevators have not been fixed. And this is not a isolated incident. Excuse me. This is not an isolated incident. This has been occurring at multiple locations, such communities throughout the United States. Matter of fact, also reading here in terms of the, this is from the National Council on Aging. It says approximately 1 in 3 seniors fall each year and inadequate. This is important. 1 out of 3 seniors fall each year. And oftentimes it's because of inadequate designs or inadequate accessibility to be able to leave these facilities. So now in this case, where you have an 85-year-old woman who cannot leave her apartment, and if she did attempt to leave her apartment, she would probably have to use the stairs, which would obviously create an unsafe environment and possibly injure herself. This is along with many of the other problems, one of the main problems with many of these senior living facilities, especially these apartment buildings, they are often in need of repair, but the property management and the owners of these facilities know that these individuals, these seniors, don't have necessarily the means at this point because they're on fixed incomes to just pick up and leave and go somewhere else. And they also know that those previous numbers where I talked about the vacancy rate, they know that there are limited options for them, for those who even have the means to leave to go somewhere else to find quality living. So oftentimes these buildings stay in these type of conditions where, whether it's the elevators, whether it's the heat not working, not adequate sewage, water problems. I mean, this is a major issue. This is not an isolated occurrence. It says, I'm also reading from that same study from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. It says a key factor driving up the cost of renovation is aging infrastructure. It says many senior housing buildings constructed decades ago were not designed with modern needs in mind, and trying to retrofit these buildings to meet today's standards, such as elevators, improving bathroom safety, increasing efficiency, water trash and water sustainability, things of that nature. It has become a significant financial burden on property owners. 2 months this elevator has been down, and nobody from the property management or the ownership group has done anything about it. Now they keep saying that they're waiting for a part. I don't know what part takes 2 months to come to fix an elevator, but that is, beyond just mind-boggling to me. In that same story, the residents actually called the media to come to that apartment complex, that senior living center, to document what was going on. And when they got there, the security guards at the building wouldn't let them in. Matter of fact, let me play that, and then I'll close out with a little bit more information, and then we'll go from there. This is again from KHOU 11, reporting about this issue in Missouri.
Did everything they could to keep us from getting inside.
You cannot be on private property if they don't want you on private property.
We can if there's a tenant who is leasing
You
an
cannot be
apartment
on
area.
private property. They don't. I'm
course
just telling
we
you
can.
what.
From the moment we arrived at the Jubilee Senior Apartment Complex in Missouri City this afternoon, it was clear the property owners did not want us there.
You cannot come on the property.
Officer,
We've been invited
No.
by the tenants. I've explained
No.
it to
why don't you simply call
We're doing our jobs at the same time. So you want me to lose my job because y'all want to come in?
But what you're saying is unlawful.
No, we're not.
Officer, let me
You're
ask
a
you
peace
this.
officer.
There-
You're misquoting the law.
No, we're not.
The standoff with the security guards lasted a little more than half an hour. They eventually called Missouri City Police, who showed up and told the guards what we'd been telling them all along, that they can't discriminate against us because we're members of the media. If a tenant invites us into their apartment, we're allowed inside.
I can't believe what's happening today.
Congressman Al Green, along with State Representative Ron Reynolds and Missouri City Council member Jeffrey Boney, are trying to get the elevators repaired. According to residents, they've been down for months.
And that is just, I think that just pretty much but that just highlights, in my opinion, how much the building property management was trying to hide this issue. And just a correction, that is from Missouri City in Texas, which is right outside of Houston. But that just highlights how much they are trying to hide what is going on there, that the residents called the media and they did not want to let the media in to see what was going on, which again speaks to the power of why, when these type of issues occur, that I myself always want to shed a light on them, because if nobody knows what's going on, how do you create change? it's so important. But I'm glad that KHOU 11 is highlighting this, out of Houston is highlighting this, because this needs to get national attention. And of course, I'm going to do everything I can to kind of push this along. Just to I guess to close out on a few more things here. Reading from a study done by the National Low Income Housing Coalition, it said it found that nearly 50% of seniors live on an income below the poverty line and are forced to make difficult decisions about housing and healthcare needs. With limited federal and state funding available for housing, especially affordable housing, many seniors and their families find themselves in desperate situations such as this, when you have individuals who are stuck in their apartment for 2 months. While some local governments have been expanding affordable housing programs overall, there definitely needs to be more of a look into what is going on at senior living facility centers across the country. And in this particular case, like I said, this is not an isolated issue. Matter of fact, just to look at one more story, there was one more story out of Washington State. This is Sonoma County, which is right outside of in the Seattle or Spokane area. They were talking to they were talking to a resident there. Como News did an interview with a resident, and the resident said that 64 years old, he signed a 1-year lease. And during that 1-year lease, he says that he never got carpet in his apartment, and stated that the property deteriorated significantly under the property management of that building. Reading a direct quote, he says, the building was filthy and homeless. People often came to sleep or do drugs. The management was rude, unresponsive to tenants when we asked for things to be fixed or for more security. Some of the furniture in the common areas was so dirty that it smelled like urine. When I asked if they would clean or replace it, they told us it was not in the budget. And I'm reading that story, but again, this is not an isolated incident. This is an ongoing incident that's occurring across the country, and it needs to be dealt with for sure. But I just wanted to kind of put this on the radar today. If you have a family member who is a senior, or you yourself are living or about to or living in a senior community, you have to reach out to not only your family and your network, but you also have to make some demands on the legislators in your state or in your city or in your town, as well as the residents here did at the Jubilee Senior Living Center in Missouri City. They contacted the media. Now, to date, nothing has been done as yet. The apartment complex over there in the property management says that they are waiting for a part. So obviously I'll be following this story and I'll update once I find out what has happened, but I'm going to stay on top of this. But again, I wanted to shed light on this because this is not the only issue. But that's my time for today. If you'd like to, you can follow up with me at the People's Voice Podcast on Instagram. And then you can also follow up with me at I am Trey Evans on YouTube. But as always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans, the People's Voice. Tell somebody about the dream. Salute.
I am Trey Evans.